There you go. Your sunburn is fantastic, Bill.
My sunburn is?
Mm-hmm.
I asked Joe. He's like, oh, it looks fine.
No,
It does look fine right now.
You look great.
Stop making them feel bad. Hey, everybody. This is your Monday Morning Roast coming to you on Facebook Live with the long-haired and very sultry Brent Wees and with Bill Playford. One or two other people may join us, and we may invite one of you two to chat on the topic. Today we're going to discuss I'll say it, fuck the future. Most specifically in fiction. But we did introduce our kids to the Back to the Future series.
Nice.
And I was watching, and this is what's going to lead me to start talking about the future and why I think the future in fiction is pretty stupid. I think so many people have been proven to have gotten things wrong. Back to the Future 2 is set in 2015. And while they were only 1 year off from predicting a Cubs World Series win, you look at 2015, everyone was in a flying car. You know, I mean, these massive highways in the sky. In 2015, there were hoverboards. There were like giant electronic bats. Everything was a hologram. Giant holograms coming off of buildings. And I just felt that, and I guess why I'm mad about it, is I felt like we've been cheated. Like, I mean, you press a button and all your clothes, like, conform to fit you. You press a button and your sneakers lace up. And I know that they've had prototypes of that, and they've had a prototype of the hoverboard, provided there's one magnet thing. But I just want to talk really quickly about how I feel so much great things have been taken away from us, because I understand they say the information age is moving us leaps and bounds forward, and as well as medicine, faster than we ever could admit. And yet I feel that the people that wrote fiction, the people that predicted things in the future in film and cartoon and television, have been way off. And I'm just going to give you a few things. Strange Days. If you've seen Strange Days, excellent movie. Used to be one of my favorites. It's got like a neural network cap that records all of your sensations and can play it into somebody else's. That was set for 1999. Back to the Future 2, as I said, set for 2015. Flying cars, hoverboards, nuclear fusion.
Garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Running Man, which is probably pretty close to what we have.
That's probably closest.
Yeah, 2017. Running Man was set in 2017, watching people get killed on television. Not in the nightly news.
That happens now.
In a game show.
Portland.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
The original Blade Runner. 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's after, as Bill educated me and reminded me I hadn't seen Blade Runner forever. 2019, that's after we had to move off the planet and come back to the planet. It's 2019. Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. Underrated science fiction film.
Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say a movie. Apparently, we're just saying movie titles.
I'm saying futuristic movies. 2020, Minority Report. 2054.
Cocoon.
Yeah, well, this God rest Don Amici's soul. And The Jetsons, 2062.
Mm-hmm.
Interstellar, 2070. And finally, The Fifth Element, which might be believable, 2263.
Time-wise, you're saying?
Yeah, time-wise.
Yeah, and I think it's
I thought you were doing amounts I would pay to go see any of those.
Yeah, but I was gonna say though, I think too, you gotta remember these were books. A lot of these were books before they were movies. That's why I said kind of fuck the future in fiction, because it's kind of all encompassing. But a lot of these were books.
Yeah, and Philip K. Dick as an author was great.
Yeah.
He just was way off in his predictions and timelines.
Right, and I think that's the important thing to point out is a lot of these stories were actually written like in the 40s and 50s and 60s in a lot of situations. And it was only then, like decades later, they were transferred to film. And what I think is, what is funny though, is also how far they were, you know? So when Joe and I were just chatting last week when we were together, I said like in 2001, A Space Odyssey, if you guys watched it, it's a masterpiece movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Here they are.
Oh.
It's long, it's brutal, I know, but what gets me is
the
that
fucking biggest wank at the end of that.
it's so. What
I
gets
will
me-
say I appreciate
Just
it.
such a wank.
It was overrated.
Okay. So as I was saying, so the guy is literally traveling to the moon, like on an interstellar transport vehicle. But when he wants to communicate back home, he has to open this giant briefcase with his laptop and this huge tube monitor in it with like a fax machine built in. And like, so here's something hilarious to me that like this guy has to carry this like duffel bag with all of his electrical equipment that we have on our phone, like all this stuff's right here in our pocket. But here he is actually literally traveling to a Hilton that's like on the moon, which is pretty hilarious to me. So some of the stuff they were so far off on. And if you've read that series, not necessarily watched the movies, but if you read that series, like by now, like Jupiter is a sun in that timeline. Okay. That's how far off it is. So that's the crazy thing to me is how they were just so propelled by the big science of the 50s and 60s that everything was going on. We had like, nuclear propulsion was being discussed for the government. They had even nuclear powered airplanes at the time. So they thought that, hey, if we maintain this trajectory, like once we get to the moon by 1969, hell, we'll be to Mars by 1980, so I think in their defense, I think based on the context of their time, they're kind of projecting on where technology would take us. And unfortunately, nobody could have predicted all of the, disasters in between.
What's interesting is I'm taking a course all on AI, an online course, and in 1955 or 1956, all the top like United States government scientists, when they're talking about AI, what AI means is robots with human tendencies. That's truthfully what AI means. Like you can feel love, you can feel guilt, everything. That's what AI means. So not what it means in our industry, but that's what it means.
And most people in our industry
actually
can't feel either one of those things.
Yeah.
It's
called general AI.
In general, I have a tough enough time with it on a good day.
Pound that one. But in 1955, 1956, apparently the government predicted, the scientists said, we're 5 years away from full AI. Like from full, like that's where they were then. In 1955, 1956, they thought we're 5 years away from that. And we are, I don't know if we're any closer,
Well, if you look at online chat bots, we're not.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, Brent, of all the things you've read, you've seen, is there anything that you feel that, not is like an egregious error by any means, but what is something that you feel that you're missing out on that we should have in the future? Is it flying cars? Is it something else? Like, because, I mean, I think every single kid our age that watched, I mean, not Eric. Eric was 35 when Back to the Future 2 came out. But every other person I know wanted a hoverboard.
I when you mentioned the Jetsons at the end, like when I was a kid, like that was one of my favorite cartoons was the Jetsons. And I was just kind of thought that was sort of badass. I was always trying to figure out how high up they were with those, where they lived on those platform houses that were, connected to the earth several thousands of miles below or whatever. So I always just thought that, being a kid and impressionable, that if the future was going to look like that, that was okay. I think as you still had to do things, I sit in this weird, like as you were teeing it up, saying, things I feel ripped off about, like there's, all this stuff that machines and technology can do for you. And then I have this like Wall-E nightmare, right? Like it's just, we're just going to be, we're going to be, eventually like human veal, right? Like we're just going to be like kept in the dark with a feeding tube, in our mouth and, and a big screen TV and like, you're on vacation, right? So
that's the Matrix, not Wall-E. Wall-E.
Yeah, but that's
carried around.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, why, if you want so much, like, I guess the feel is for a lot of people, they want so much technology, so they have to do less. And I actually don't want to give up my own physicalities and my own mobility just because something's going to make something easier for me. I don't necessarily want everything to be easier for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not Mr. like, I can't wait for more like cool shit to come out. I'd rather see how it leveraged. Like I've seen some really cool stuff. And when you were talking about AI, I think the smartest stuff I've seen lately is when someone actually builds automations the right way. And there are teams out there that are doing it. Like I have a friend he and his team, they're actually building automations the way it should be built, with a lot of thought. And then they're baking in they're baking in the artificial intelligence after the fact. And I think that's where they built it, because I think everyone has, and we've talked about this on the side. Everyone rushed to like AI, and that we, everything we do has AI in it. No one really does, because it's such a long window of learning, right? It's if you take something like, Joe goes off to medical school tomorrow. Joe's got to go to school for 4 years to really immerse himself in enough education to do that profession, properly, right? Like or to be a lawyer or something. Like there's all this sort of learning.
5 years for me.
And 7 for me. So if you take that into consideration, then you have all these companies going, well, we have AI. Where it falls down is the excuse that always comes back is, well, the machines need more time to learn. And the machines are built by human beings. So the machines can only learn as fast as the human beings can process their own thoughts and their own workflows into what they want to build. So I think for me is, while I've seen some really cool things, I think the people who are building better automations first, and then allowing the AI to layer itself on top, instead of just coming in and going, oh, it's just AI. Because I've worked with startups that have been working with AI, and they're cute, and then they fall apart about 45 seconds in.
Yeah, what I've learned is, there's essentially 3 stages of AI, and we are only in the second. We're nowhere close to getting to the third. The first one is just good old-fashioned AI, which is the if this then that type of algorithms. The second one, which we're now,
but is that more an automation though, Joe? Would you argue that that's an automation rather than AI, because you've built the thought? It's not really. I don't believe that's AI. But
no, exactly. And then so after GoFi, there's machine learning that just uses predictive algorithms, where it learns, and it just is like the exact same scenario, where it starts to say, just the Pandoras of the world. You were listening to this, here's similar interest to you. Amazon, these are what other people have bought. This is other things that you might be interested in. That's where we're at now, where you can guess and hold basic conversations based on keywords. And I'm learning all the neural network stuff, which is really interesting. I've had to dive into algebra again. But what's really far away, I think, is, you mentioned the Jetsons, how they communicated with their butler, their maid or whatever, that robot going around. I would love that. I'd love somebody to just do all the dishes, and as would Bill. I know he uses his children for it, but I'd love somebody to just like do the laundry, do the dishes, like do all those things. So myself, my wife, my family wouldn't have to worry about those things. You press something you press a button, and a whole plate of food shows up. Like those type of things. I think there's a convenience factor that Amazon has given us, that other companies have given us, that you say, might make us lazy. Absolutely. I don't want to be less mobile, but I want to spend less time doing basic chores and tasks.
Because what are you going to do with that spare time?
Learn and work on more AI.
That's what I mean. People ask for stuff, but then they don't know what to do with that time they get back.
Yeah. Well, I think anytime, I don't know, do you feel that with more time in your day, would you be able to accomplish more things that you enjoy doing?
I think it's, I don't know if it's a matter of having more time in your day. I think it's more of a matter of, no, I don't actually, Joe, because I think what would happen is if somehow and I think we've already seen it, like with how everyone's working remotely right now. I actually think more of your professional life and more of your work life is actually coming in if you're working out of a home office right now. Like I know all of us have kind of been home for a long time already, even before this, so we're used to it. But I do see that where, and I hear it from friends and things like that. So it's interesting that you say that more time, because I think it's already started where there's this assumption that while you're home, you can put in more time towards work now. And I think that I've seen people tweet about it, and I've seen other things. And I think that's burning people out. I think it's more important to not actually give yourself more hours in the day, but actually just be more diligent about actually stopping yourself from working through points of your day when you should actually stop and just go for a walk or go for a swim or do 20 minutes of something different, like get away from all this technology that's actually sucking us in and keeping us from being out there. I think it's more of our own job to be given. You got to give yourself that time and not rely on something else to create it or manifest it for you.
Can I interrupt your conversation for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So first off, for the viewers, A World Without Work talks about all this stuff. Okay. So you can just read the book. It's all in there. So,
oh, well, good night, everybody.
Yep. So, no, but I think the more important thing that I think we're not bringing up here is the fact that I don't think it's meant to take away necessarily work, but I think what we have to look at and what we hear all the time in the news is that there's a knowledge gap in the workforce. There's plenty of jobs available. There just aren't the right people to fill them. So here we are, pre-pandemic, we had a pretty low unemployment rate, but there's still tons of jobs that could not be filled. And this is where even taking narrow AI as opposed to general AI, but if you take narrow AI and apply it to that workforce, like you actually get more productivity. And I think that's where we don't necessarily quit working per se. Like, I don't think that any of, I know the three of us, we would figure out something to do regardless, to occupy our time that's productive. But I think the idea is to sort of like, not necessarily work harder, but work smarter. And what I mean by that, not like the stupid, meme that you might see about it, but what I mean by that is that, you're not having to wear yourself out to do things that you're just not capable of doing. And I think that's what we're running into right now. That's part of why I think we haven't been able to bridge the gap from narrow AI to general AI, is because the people who are doing it are the limiting factor now. The people who are involved in putting these things together, they're the limiting factor. There just isn't enough time in the day for all these scientists to put in the time and effort to make the stuff work.
Yeah, I'm going to have a couple people join us here shortly.
Oh boy, 2 guests.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I can't make fun of people that fast.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try.
Hey, listen though, I want to say something. Back to the Future hover cars. Eric had a hover Mastodon when he was a child, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, I know
Eric's wearing his Google Glass right now while he's onboarding.
Eric didn't join this car just because, we'd get to ask him things like, did you even imagine that there would be running water?
Yeah. Like when you got your indoor plumbing installed at your house for the first time, was that like a big technological advancement for the Milch family?
Were your dreams in the future in black and white?
Exactly.
Great. Here's first person joining us.
Micah.
Oh, Jesus.
Literally, he looks like him.
Yeah, he's probably shirtless and doing yoga already.
Yeah,
I threw one on quick.
Okay, that's why he's so breathless.
It's shirtless Minnesota.
Like a dressed.
Put on some goddamn. It's the nudist compound in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa! I didn't put pants on.
Hey, easy.
Why do I think that Micah's just constantly in bike shorts?
Yeah.
And we've got Ryan Leslie, who
guy in the car business. Holy shit.
Nicest guy.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
This guy's a monster.
Nicest guy in the car business.
Not at all. You haven't seen the side of Ryan Leslie I've seen.
He wears pants at least sometimes.
He's awful.
Is that as bright as you get, Micah?
Intellectually or visually?
Yes, works.
Well done.
Just
Yeah. Nice.
there you go.
There he is.
And there's Ryan. Ryan looks like he's
You're on mute, Mark. I think Ryan.
Ryan looks like he dumps different things into a bowl and swirls it around and makes a prediction about your life.
Exactly.
No, Ryan spent this entire pandemic growing a beard. That's what he did. He just grew his beard in
Exactly. And it looks like he's got a mohawk happening there too. What's happening on top? He's on mute, so we can just
he's on mute. Yeah.
sucker punch him until he can fight back.
Cover off mute.
This is like punching a blind kid.
I know. I hate Albert Pujols.
The Cardinals are the worst team ever.
Unmute yourself.
St. Louis smells like old McDonald's.
You need to unmute yourself.
You know where the mute button is, Grandpa?
My background's a little funny.
He's on mute. There he is.
Hey!
Until he can fight back.
Funny.
I punching a blind kid.
I started COVID by shaving my beard off. So I,
Cardinals are the worst team ever.
oh, get
You
out of
need
here.
to lower the volume on your
Lewis
Facebook.
McDonald's.
Jesus, it's
So
like a
if you're
call. It's like
watching-
this is the guy that calls into the sports radio station, and they're like, "Can you please turn down your radio?"
Hey.
Holy shit!
They're
Listen,
like,
he's a vice president for some tech company, isn't he? Right now, isn't he?
I hate
Does?
They work with AI.
Hold on a minute.
You need
Oh
I
my
have to-
god!
to lower the volume.
I just mute it. Just mute
live you're watching.
mute Facebook Live. Just
Yes.
mute Facebook Live and you're good.
Mute your house.
Yeah.
What? Are we good?
We'll see. He's muted entirely now. He needs to
Gonna
just mute his Facebook Live and then join us.
He's
This is
now
what
the
happens.
nicest
Yeah,
AT&T
he just-
operator in the country
Actually,
right now.
Ryan just qualified for his ARP card.
So I gotta say, I used to do a little bit for stand up where I'd get up and I'd fumble with the mic and I'd have I'd already have pre-recorded where it was just constantly giving feedback and I'd spend 3 minutes not getting it to work and I'd walk off stage and that was my bit. You know, was just, and this is what it's like for Ryan. It's the rest of the show is just going to be him trying to figure this out.
Was that before or after the "Here I Come to Save the Day" performer? Or was that like right after the guy would sing the Mighty Mouse theme song? Or
So what's interesting, Micah, is
Would this be easier if we just drove to Ryan's house and talked to him there? Figure this out. We could get there.
can you get down here? Isn't there like a border that's stopping you, or can you get in, Brent?
No, I wouldn't. Why would I want to go down? Ryan, are you there?
I'm here now. Yeah. You know what the worst part of that whole thing was? I had to listen to you make fun of me over and over and over again because it was in a loop.
Good.
Kept saying the same
you
thing.
deserve it.
So I feel like I've already participated and I can exit now.
Yeah.
So I want to actually get on to the topic. Micah, thank you for joining us. What would you say of the books you've read, the films you read? What do you feel, films you've seen, books you've read, cartoons, I think, is some of the most egregious errors in what people would predict our future to be like that never lived up to it and is not going to live up to it?
Oh gosh, I guess I wasn't preparing for that question whatsoever. I was in the middle of reading Ted Chiang right now. He's got a series of shorts, so I was more going to comment on some of that things. But Communicator, I don't know. Like Star Trek's nailed just about everything, but
Shut
like
up.
freaking Star Trek's awesome. So I'm loving that. I mean, we are working on teleporters, and there is science that has been able to teleport certain things. So,
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum showed everybody, didn't he?
he nailed it. He was just a fly on the wall of the.
My least favorite person to ever arm wrestle.
Jeff Goldblum.
When he was the Fly. Have you not seen the movie? Never mind.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're older than me. I was allowed to.
I'm pretty sure you're older than me too, though. That's what I'm kind of wondering about that. Go ahead.
But what I was finding interesting is like when I did pop on, listen to the conversation, and I was about to chime in, was that like we're talking about having more work or more time to our workday. I don't know if I missed if you guys had talked about it already, but like the standard 40-hour work week was coded prior to computers.
Right.
Like before that. And so like we still have this minimum, even though we can be far more productive. If we have even more tools, I don't think that like corporations and business, at least not in the American mindset, is going to allow us to limit the amount of work that we do. They'll just have the same level of expectation, 40-hour standard. And right now, even at 40 hours, most people especially in our industry, think 40 hours is part-time because everyone's hustling and grinding so much that they're getting 60 to 80 hours before.
Wrestling.
Russell was the word you're looking for, but go ahead.
Wrestling, sorry. But
I
don't think that if we had AI doing more for us, that it would actually limit the amount that we did. It would actually probably increase the expectations because they say, well, you got this AI doing this, you can do even more. So I don't think that unless there's a huge mind shift in the business culture that we would ever find it minimizing or opening up more free time for us to do things that we love.
That's an awesome point. I think you read, there was a book that Jason Fried had not reworked, but their newest book. So Work Doesn't Have to Be Hard.
I love that one.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have to be crazy at work.
Yeah, that's what. Thank you.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But I think you bring up a good point, because if you look at the 40-hour work week, it's sort of based on the 8-hour day, which is based on factory work, which is based on 3 shifts. And in a way, it's kind of an arbitrary number. Americans work more than the rest of the world, probably, at least on an hourly basis in terms of like time, like being counted. I'm sure other nations that, do agriculture like might work harder, but in terms of like showing up to work, punching a time card or what have you, like we're the worst at it. What gets me is that other European countries, again, those communist bastard Europeans, all of them, the whole lot of them, with their short work weeks, like they haven't collapsed with like a 30-hour work week, or things of that nature. So I know in France, I want to say it's 30 hours, I think is what it is, but somebody, please fact check me on that.
Really quickly, Bill, are you saying that right now, because of computers, and Micah, and we'll get to you, Ryan, I appreciate you, but are you saying, and I weigh in on this as well, do you think that with the advent of computers, technology, that corporations are getting more work from people now because of the technology in 40 hours than without the technology in 40 hours? Or do you feel that all the technology has in turn also made people less productive while they're at work?
Yes. I think there's a disparity between job roles, I think is what we see, is that, so you have the people that are coding that are actually like locking in, focusing, like my wife. My wife, that's what she does. She codes knowledge platforms. She codes websites. And when she's working, she is working. She is far more effective. She's got her headphones on. She's focused on it. She's got her EDM on the background, and she is just zoning in. I'm not showing what level of Adderall she's on when she's doing this, but it's not my concern. She makes a paycheck. We're happy. But then you have those that are in sales that are, where's my next opportunity? Oh, there's a Facebook conversation. I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to start shit with that person. And then all of a sudden, oh, I got a sale. That work is not even close to the amount of work. Now, it's easier because I have a computer and I can hop on Zoom and I can do this. My job is easier, but I'm not working harder at all by having the technology in place.
I think Ryan's like at the intersection of all this stuff right now. I'd love to get his opinion on it.
Yeah.
Well, he can only unmute his computer.
Yeah.
I'm going to disappoint you is what's going to happen there. You really need to be talking to Dr. Frankie, but I get the benefit of listening to them talk. And I've said this before, you never, everybody knows this, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. I never have to worry about that at Car Story because I get to talk with Dr. Frankie. Two things. Mike, I disagree with one thing you said. The work you do as a salesperson is probably hard for someone like your wife who wants to just bang on the computer and be in her own little zone. So what is valuable in work is part of the individual skill set, I think. And that's what makes us who we are and how we work, I guess. So I think the other kind of interesting thing going on right now is there's some situational stuff that's happening within our company. Our CEO had a call with us on Friday of last week and just admitted, hey, work from home's hard. This is challenging. There are new things happening. When your kids come walking into your room while you're working, that's going to cause a different kind of a break than water cooler does. So I think what may be changing the way we think about work is maybe less about all of the AI and all of the automation that's possible and more like what does work look like post-COVID, where a lot of people are not planning to return to an office. So I don't know. There's definitely some interesting things going on. I think, as always, Joe, you've chosen a very timely and interesting topic for discussion. So appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, it is. And so I've always got to walk a fine line because Brent got really butthurt when we talked about Star Wars on our first call,
and then our second call.
By the second
and then
call,
the third call.
No, by the second or third call, he essentially
was crying. Yeah, I recall.
He essentially said,
exactly.
I don't watch movies. So
no, I watch movies. They don't have lasers in them in spaceships.
Yeah. He watches film noir.
So if we're talking about the future,
back to
Star
AI.
Wars
I watch
is
highfalutin
history.
shit.
It's Star Wars is what happened historically.
Shut up,
it's a history
Micah.
story. Where Star
Shut
Trek is futurism. I'm just saying,
Shut
a long time
up.
ago.
Micah, shut up.
Ryan had something poignant to say here. I want to hear what he has to say.
No, I did get to listen to Dr. Frankie talk about. So those of you that don't know him, he's extremely well credentialed, smart dude. He was one of the original guys on Google's algorithm. He works for us, teaches at UT in Austin. He's super smart. He's been doing AI since the 1980s. So some of the stuff that hit our industry within the last year, a particular vendor that put out a newsletter where everything was AI something. What we know about that is that's like 1980s AI. That's that following the flow chart and some automation. It technically meets the technical definition, but it's not the sexy stuff like Westworld.
That vendor doesn't use any of that either, though, Ryan. Okay, but go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I didn't mean to pick on them, but just everybody, it's the buzzword, right? We do this in the industry. It was reputation management. It was, whatever we can do to push a widget a little further into a pipeline. But, now my computer went to sleep. I'm really doing well. Okay. Hopefully I'm back.
You're on.
Yeah, so that's it was interesting to listen to him talk about it because AI actually had a trajectory where he called it the AI winter, and I don't have the timelines, but everything stopped because the processing power and the ability to house data and clean that data wasn't keeping up with the initiatives they wanted programmatically. So it all stopped at like flowchart fulfillment. And then within the last, 5-6 years, there's been this resurgence of interest because now we have the processing power and data storage is cheap enough and resilient enough that they can actually do some of the things they were thinking about doing 30, 40 years ago. So I think you're going to see a resurgence and a new interest in AI simply because the ideas have always been there. Back in the 60s, it was the Jetsons. What can we program Rosie to do? Well, now we actually have the ability to do some of that stuff. My vacuum cleaner runs by itself, scans the room. It knows where it's going. It knows where it's been. We had the opportunity in the app to name it. So my family chose to name the vacuum cleaner Robo Mom, which was a compliment. It may not have sounded like it, but it's a compliment.
Can you train it to unmute your computer?
There are so many things my wife could do better than me. It's embarrassing. But
yeah.
Without focusing, like you mentioned the Jetsons, and I couldn't remember her name was Rosie. Yeah. But you look at something like flying cars, which is something that people thought would be about forever. So let's talk through what it would take to get there. So we're already talking about connected cars, cars being able to speak to each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way to essentially really declog a lot of the traffic jam in metropolitan areas.
People can't drive well enough now. Why would we put them in the air in something? Like, look at every BMW driver, Like,
do you need a flying car?
Well, I mean,
I love the idea so much. I wrote a blog post about it. I mean, that's exactly it, though. I mean, if we can't manage traffic on the ground, I mean, just imagine somebody like texting on their phone, flying at like subsonic speeds. Just I mean,
well, if it's programmed like in Westworld where it's more drone based, I could see that being a reality where individuals have it's pre-programmed. This is the airspace. This is exactly the
you couldn't have them control it.
That's why I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to get through the timeline where you'd have to get connected cars talking to each other. Then they become driverless, and then they can go subterranean or in the air.
I want the cars to start talking to each other and then start running us over. They kind of take back the streets. They become self-aware and just start taking people out on their own. That would be amazing.
Terminator 9.
You presuppose a need, though. That's the important thing. If there's no need, you're not going to see that innovation because who's the target market for it? Who does it fulfill?
Yeah. I remember Farley gave a TED Talk, not Chris Farley, Ford, gave a TED Talk 8-9 years ago. And he said one of the biggest problems is going to be with automobiles is going to be congestion for one specific reason. I think it's like 80% of the world's population lives within 200 miles of 20 or 300 miles within 27 cities worldwide. So because of that, logistically, there is not a way to drive to get people to where they need to be. So COVID has taught us maybe it's just everybody staying at home and not doing anything. But if there's still going to be a scenario for workplace and for travel to and fro, then even Farley said it's either got to go into the sky or subterranean. That's it.
Well, that's
Like,
what
that's
that's what a lot of cities are doing.
Or connect it all so you get a ping to your mobile device saying, leave the restaurant in 7 minutes. Your vehicle will be waiting for you. It will travel at a rate of 47 miles per hour, given everybody else traveling right now, and you'll be home in X amount of minutes. You get in the car and you just play on your phone, and you do not ever touch a wheel or a steering wheel. That is where we're going. The problem is movies and television said we'd already have that by now.
That's true, but here's the problem. So, I mean, having worked...
I hate that.
I do too.
I don't
Having
want that.
Worked a lot of companies over the years. I mean, the hardware to do this actually, that's not the limiting factor. There's litigation, and there's our shit-tastic road infrastructure. It's a big problem as well. And then places like where Mike and I live, and Ryan to a degree, and Brent, it snows like crazy. So what happens when the roads aren't taken care of? So, I mean, they've had the hardware to do this for over a decade. I remember talking to some General Motors engineers at South by Southwest probably 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And they said, hey, if all the cars had OnStar, we could do this right now if every single car had it. So they can have that traffic mitigation and stuff like that. But the problem is the guys like me who are driving ancient cars that don't have all the technology, that don't have all the lane avoidance technology and stuff like that. Like, that's the limiting factor. So all these cars that are on the road for 11, 12 years, they can't talk to the brand new cars. And that's the problem that nobody can answer. So going back to flying cars, that's actually possible because we don't have one yet. So maybe from the onset when they build these things, where the drone cars might be, they can build this technology in there. And the companies that build these things might actually talk to each other and like have their own protocols put in place. So that way it'll work. But right now with the shitty cars we got, the bad infrastructure, and then we got to factor in the people that are in charge of this stuff. They don't get along. They hate each other. So we have to factor that as well.
In regard to Micah, what Micah said is if they actually had, like, I had never heard anybody ever was able to, I have been reading about teleportation where they are able to travel like nothing live, like the tiniest something.
That subatomic particles that are able to be transferred. That's the extent of it right now.
But listen, if we came up with that, we wouldn't need flying cars. If they just dropped a teleportation thing and everybody, but we know, God forbid, when that technology comes out, it's first going to be used by governments to like assassinate people for the first 300 years of its.
I would love someone to figure out a way to get up a set of stairs like without actually having to take the steps.
Well, I see these infomercials where they create this little chair that very slowly and carefully.
Or just no, you can stand up. You can stand up and go up the stairs.
Oh, it'd be
without
best
having.
like Eric.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Like an escalator?
Escalators? An escalator?
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
Escalators.
Escalators. Escalators is the way we say it in Canada.
That's what it is.
Escalators.
As fascinating as technology.
Those guys at medieval times.
I think probably one of the, if you had asked about books and it just kind of came to me, and I apologize, maybe kind of switching it up, but have you guys read the Red Rising series, or have you looked into the Red Rising series at all? It's a if you like sci-fi futuristic.
No, Micah, I'm too busy dating chicks.
Sorry, Mr. Shitastic.
That sounds like Russia circa 1917 is what it sounds like to
Hey, have
me.
you guys read the sci-fi?
Okay, so if we talk about stuff that happens in the future, and it is futurist, I'm still going with it. Red Rising series is not so much focusing on the technology, but what happens to human society and classism. So how are there new castes, new classes that now start using technology to adjust the human genome, to evolve the human species into different classes? So it's not just a matter of rich, elite, and poor. Now it is the rich elite now look different. They are considered golds. They are 6 feet, 7 feet tall, like 7 feet tall minimum. They have golden skin, and now they are oppressing all the other colors in the spectrum of classes. And I think that is a fun storyline if you want to read anything that's a little bit different take on what the future is.
Bill is pink. What color? Bill is pink with sunburn. What class would he be in the Red Rising?
It's the lighting. It's the lighting. It's a
what I'd say is it's sort of happening. I mean, not to get article. It's sort of happening now, but instead of gold, like the golds being tall and buff, they're just the old and rich.
Exactly. And now what do
Like-
they do with that money to then adjust who they are? I agree with you 100% because as I'm reading through it, it's like, holy shit, this is more of a storyline of what we are as a global society doing now than anything else. So some great introspection. It's got the whole like Braveheart, fighting from nowhere kind of mentality storyline to it as well. But I'd recommend if you like reading books and not dating chicks, that's the thing to do. Pick up Free Rising.
Ryan, what nerd books are you reading?
Well, I was just I don't have any
highlight-
nerd books, but
What?
I did read a good book not too long ago, and I can't remember the title. I was going to look it up, but I didn't want to be accused of like doing something else, and I'm supposed to be talking to you guys. But it was about an electromagnetic pulse and what happened to society and the balkanization after that happened, and it was really fascinating. So maybe the other side of the coin. You're talking about all of this progress. What happens when something disrupts that and we fall back to base human level instinct and interaction with each other, and what skill sets have value in a place where, being able to type 50 words per minute don't. So I don't know. It was kind of an interesting book.
Ryan's like Viking stock that he has would be perfect in that situation. Like he's
Yeah, I was going to
for
say
the earth and
looks like-
stocky and strong and
Ryan right now looks like somebody in the cast from How to Train Your Dragon.
Can I share a funny story? I was trying to share this before.
He was trying to train a dragon.
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment, by the way. For those of you that, maybe are not capable of producing such man face.
not me.
So I shaved my beard off right at the beginning of COVID because I hadn't done it. My kids had never seen me without one. So I came down with a coffee cup right here like this, totally blocked, pulled it down enough that they saw naked lip and they cried. So there was a petition that quickly formed for me to grow it back because they didn't like the way my face looked.
Wow.
So
Well, you said a petition. I'd love it if they said grow it back, and he's like, not until I have signatures from each one of you.
all of you.
Yeah,
It was pretty much unanimous.
What did
Hey,
Adam Sandler has that stand-up about? Always talking about his dad once a year would shave his beard off, and then he'd look so defeated every time he did it. And it's like, Dad, you feeling right? He's like, it'll grow back.
Yeah, it does. So the first line on the petition was my wife. That was the deciding factor.
Oh, really?
So,
Wow.
but it'd probably been 10, 12 years, I think, since I'd really shaven. So
I've never seen you without a beard ever.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, Ryan, because I was thinking about that picture you and I in Atlantic City. I think you had really small beard, like really kind of close shut. Like I think that's the least amount of beard I think I've ever seen you though was that far away.
I used to cry.
Yeah, when I first met
almost a decade
Ryan,
ago.
he had a Hitler mustache, but that was a couple. I think a couple years most he kept that. Micah, how much would it cost for you to shave your entire head and face bald?
That's a great question. That's a great
gosh.
question.
Does this take place in the future or now?
No, right now. How much would it cost?
I know I've seen Micah without a beard, but I don't remember when. Micah, how long have you kept yours on?
I've never.
I've had a beard probably for 7 years, and I started growing my hair out from bald about 5 years ago.
I've got a picture of you and I where you were a clean-shaven kid.
I know he had like a little scruff and like this little Pee-wee Herman haircut going on.
Yeah, I had the hard cut part and all that going on and all that, but I think
it was called a spike.
Yeah.
But how much would it cost? How much would it cost, like for you to take it off?
I don't
Be
know.
real. Like don't
Okay.
be. You know.
No, okay. So like, if it was just like, here, I'm gonna write you a check for 20 grand, I'd probably take 20 grand.
Yeah.
To shave it. Yeah. It'd have to be sizable because I mean, otherwise,
Perfect.
yeah, 20 grand. I'll do it.
Joe, you got that
it's
GoFundMe working right now, or should I start?
No, that's a great answer though, right? Like you spent 5 years growing it, and then you've always had a beard, so to shave all that off, yeah, like buku dollars.
Yeah, that's all of his beard and hair care products right there. I mean, I'm sure he just ended up with his head.
20 grand's a nice vacation.
It is.
There, right?
Well, actually, the 20 grand stuck out
because he'd shave it all off, and he'd go on vacation with the 20 grand, and people think he was like a Make-A-Wish kid or something.
So I got a question for the group. Though. Do you think the dystopian future books actually got it more right than like the wildly optimistic books or movies?
Great question.
That is a good question.
I think
Ryan, you go first. Let Ryan answer this one first.
I think in terms of cycles. So when I think about the dystopian stuff, again, coming back to that, what happens if there's an EMP and everything goes back to what was it like 100 years ago? I think also for us, it's really hard to keep perspective on how much we've advanced and how different our society looks compared to even our great grandparents. So I don't know. I think that I believe you're much more likely to see something occur. This is sad, but something occur that eliminates all of that future thinking and takes us back to a base level human experience. I think that's much more likely than flying cars and transportation via super tubes and stuff like that. I don't know. I think we're ripe for a resetting of society similar to what happened to Rome and every other culture prior to that. Something happens. I mean, that seems to be the cyclical nature of the world that we live in. And on that cheery note, sorry, that's what I think, though.
I'm going to add some booze to my coffee here right now.
What I want to say to that is, I think the answer will be 100% dependent upon who is in charge. Like if from a government standpoint across all governments, we continue to have the warmongering, power-hungry people in charge, then by all means, there's going to be something catastrophic that happens that results in that. But given what I know about, linear time.
Because you know a lot about that.
No, well, listen, we're only going to be electing more and more millennials.
Phoenix University.
We're only going to be electing more and more millennials. We're not going to be finding more Gen Xers and more baby boomers to put in there. And from what I do know about millennials and even the younger generation, what is it called, like the Zoom generation or whatever it's called. What I know about those
Zoomers are older.
They are not as intent and power hungry as what our forefathers and ancestors are. So for that reason, I would say if we could probably get past the next 40 years with anything catastrophic happen, I would like to think that there's a significant advancement. And I will go the opposite of Ryan, as I know that's not what I want to happen. But given the sheer amount of idiocy I see on Facebook every day, it's like it's destiny. It's within the next few years, it seems like, depending on who wins. And in November. But what I will say is that I would like to believe that the people coming up are more in tune on living a safe, convenient, easygoing life than one filled with constantly trying to accumulate more power, wealth, and land.
Great.
Micah?
Okay.
I hope you're right.
From Micah.
So I think that if we were to go along the timeline that you said with millennials coming into power and they have less apt to be, I don't know, maybe that makes us in the United States more vulnerable. And in doing so, if that makes us more vulnerable for an attack where they are not going to be as prepared or the ability to be prepared to repel such attack, and then the global destruction does occur because of that, I think that we'll see more of a dystopian future coming ahead of us in the next probably 20 years to 30 years. I think that's more of a reality than anything else, because of the mutations of diseases, the ability to have mass destructive weapons, I think is greater, and the overall inability to be able to have human conversation and agree on things without starting fights. I think that having that pulled out of the equation means that we're going to have a massive global event. I believe that 100%.
No one's going to attack you guys though, because a couple of things. One, the rest of the world has seen Florida's Instagram accounts, and two, you guys are doing it to yourselves anyways. Like they're just letting you guys do it internally. No one has to come in right now. They're just like, let's just close the doors and let them go.
Just shut off the borders.
They'll fall asleep. They'll tire themselves
The United
out.
States still has, from what I heard, 3 times more nuclear weapons than the next closest country.
I don't know about that.
It's just
Russia and the U.S. are really close. They're
the last thing I read.
I don't know.
And
There's a
listen,
pretty big fireworks truck down the road from my house, so.
yeah. So but I think that this is what I look at. I think
I gotta
it's
roll.
probably a lot closer to Ryan's.
I gotta go.
Micah.
Okay,
He's all right.
thanks for
Good
joining,
seeing you
Micah.
guys.
Appreciate it. He's gonna go run across the country.
He's got to get
Um,
his clothes off and do some yoga.
Exactly.
I'm
So
pretty tired. And he's gonna Forrest Gump it and just walk back.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up too, though. I got to make a
Yeah,
call.
no,
I got some onboarding with Eric I have to do.
right. So, but just to want to just talk about Ryan's point though. I think there's two different ways this could go about. I think if we go into like a more dystopian future, which I think is more the case as well. I think if it's a natural disaster, I think people will actually come together. I think if it's something external, like an attack of something of that nature, I think people will be driven further apart. So I think it goes both ways. But I don't see people coming together for a common cause right now in America or the U.S. just because like it's just too divisive right now. So
Not here.
yeah, if it's the case of
But when you think about when you think classically of any. Sorry, go ahead, Bill. You were cutting out there.
No, I was gonna say though, I just think though, like I don't see a good future for that. I think if something were to happen, like if we got a comet strike or something like that, like some of the other dystopian movies, I think people really
Bill's
come together.
frozen.
For sure. What?
Bill, you keep freezing. But
Yeah.
but I mean, listen. To that said, I still think there's going to be people in like, let's say we get hit with a nuclear bomb. There's going to be people in America saying like, "What do you mean I can't go outside without a gas mask on? My face, my choice." I think this nuclear fallout's just a hoax. Ah! Like it's
Everything's a hoax.
you know.
Well, the good news is at least it'll kill them, and so they get them on the gene pool, and they can't reproduce. So at least there's a positive outcome of that future, at least.
Yeah. Listen, the fact that I always am an optimist. I don't want
No, you're
to
not.
imagine the children that we have and we raised to go on and suffer for those reasons, you know. And for that reason, I will always think optimistically in the fact that I want the best for people in the future. And I would like to believe that common sense and logic overcomes and scientific advancement continues, not for negative outcomes, but for positive outcomes.
Yeah,
And
I
I'd
think we
like
should
to-
just get all Ryan's kids to start running for local government because clearly they understand how to legislate change and what the 2/3 majority is. Like those kids, they got it down. Get those kids start pushing people around.
They know how to push pain points is what they know how to do. Hey, mom said she doesn't like your face.
Yeah.
Mom said.
Make dad handsome again.
Oh, Dad, you look 30
Yeah.
years older.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, here,
sorry, I didn't mean to take you down a dark path there, but
No, you did
I don't
when
know,
you couldn't unmute your machine.
well, yeah, it started at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Turning
We
point.
think we live at the pinnacle of society too. I don't know. That's just this stuff's very interesting to me. What did it feel like to be a Roman after Rome collapsed? Like, what was that immediate shock like? And how did they recover? And why did it? You know, I don't know. I keep coming back to them, but any societal collapse.
There was an article I
influence.
shared with,
Super
and I'll send it to you, Ryan. There was an article
Okay.
I shared with these guys where remember last week you guys I sent you that a guy did a historical blow by blow Roman Empire U.S. U.S. state of things right now, and he just did a back and forth of like what happened, what they did to sort of try to mitigate problems, and how it escalated to the collapse, right? And it's really well done. It was on Medium, I think. But
Yeah, they call it the Dark Ages. Though.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
They call it the Dark Ages.
What was the short version?
Yeah. So, hey, I want to thank Groundskeeper Willie for joining us. And
I think that was.
and thank you so much for that.
I think that was directed at me.
It was totally directed at you. Look at you.
Yeah.
Every time.
Ryan.
All right, guys. Hey, you take care. Let's keep pushing for the betterment of mankind and the nuclear fallout of the dummies. And maybe one day we won't have to drive or fly to see each other. Maybe we can just teleport and we can do all these things in person.
But
Awesome.
and just before we go, Joe, congrats on your new role.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
It's a big one.
Yep, I know it's a fun one. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, guys.
Bye bye.